This is a place for planting, for digging, for harvesting, for relaxing. It's a place to get your hands dirty, but most of all, it's about having fun. And that's what you'll always have when you're in the garden with Doug Oster. You want a green thumb too, don't you? Oh, there is a chill in the air. That's the first tomato cage. And with that chill, no frost yet, but it's time to get the peppers and all the other tender crops out, including tomatoes. But you know, with my garden, tomatoes are coming out, but something's going right back in. Follow me. Well, normally, to me, it seems like just yesterday that I planted these, but this season, for some reason, seems like it was a long season. I don't know why, but we always take this kind of stuff out of the garden because these vines are where pests and diseases can overwinter. And so it's no problem. We're just gonna pull these out. These vines were not diseased, so we're just gonna put them right into the compost pile. And once I get these out and the cage is thrown over the fence, as I said, we got something else to plant here. Same day, that's a good thing. You know, if you've got any tomatoes left on the vine, and I've pulled mine all off, if they have a little blush on them, you can put them in a bag with an apple and they will slowly ripen. That apple has something called ethylene gas, which makes them ripen. All I've got left are green tomatoes, and probably enough for one little batch of fried green tomatoes. Not good for you, but every once in a while you gotta splurge. All right, let me get this finished up and then we'll start planting. Now comes the fun part. We're gonna plant tulips where our tomatoes were. The reason I've got tulips going in here is because it's behind this fence here. The deer can't get to it. It's the only place that I can plant tulips because they love those. That's their favorite food. And so since I'm using this technique now called no-till gardening, I figured, well, I'm not digging it up. I can put the tulips in. When they're done, the tomatoes will go back in here, and we've got one bed for two different crops. And usually I get my tulips and my other bulbs locally, but I'm on an email list for a place called Longfield Gardens, and they had a flash sale. And so these 100 bulbs, I think, were around 25, 30 bucks. It was a great deal. And so all we're gonna do is use our power planter, and you've seen me use it before. This soil is so good, it's gonna be easy to plant. We'll put these 100 bulbs in probably 10 minutes. I treat tulips basically as annuals. Sometimes in a nice bed like this, they'll come back for 2 or 3 years, but usually what happens, first year flowers, second year not so good flowers, third year just green, grayish foliage, fourth year nothing. That's okay. What they need is a place that they can really dry out during the summer. And this is not it, because we're going to be pouring water on the tomatoes and basically drowning these bulbs underneath. But I've got to have my tulips in the spring, and they'll make a great, great cutting garden. And I can't wait to see them in the spring. All right, 100 tulips in place. As I said, the spring is going to be fantastic. But outside the fence, we can plant these. I got some more deals on different alliums. They're from the onion family, and deer will not touch them. Now I'm going to put those out in this bed on the other side of the fence. You don't have to see me do that. Then we are going to take a look at some tender plants. We've got to get inside, but before we do that, I want to show you something that is still thriving. Well, besides my penchant for bargains, the other thing I talk way too much about is this plant here, and it's called Corydalis lutea. And while we are about to move some of our tender plants inside, this perennial started blooming in April, and look at it now. It's still in full bloom, and we're almost into November. That's why every garden should have this plant. And in here, it's growing in consort with something called smartweed, and I think it looks just absolutely wonderful. I don't consider smartweed a weed because I think it is beautiful. You tell me what you think. Now let's get to those tender plants. So here's an example of something tender. Even though we have not had a frost, caladiums can't take any cold. Now I'm going to wait for the frost so that I can save these bulbs underneath and dahlias. But one of the tricks that I've been experimenting with the last couple years is using ivy and other perennials in containers and then wintering them over. I'm lucky enough to have a greenhouse. This will go in the greenhouse, but if you didn't have one, it could be a house plant. But we've got some other plants we're going to take inside next, so let's take a look at those. This begonia, and its name is Marmaduke. I got it from one of my favorite places, DJ's Greenhouse in Transfer, PA. And for the last 3 seasons, I've been taking it in and out, of course, when it gets cold. And what I do for any plant like this that I'm going to grow on the windowsill all winter long, like begonias or poinsettias that I do year after year, is I'm going to take it into the sun porch as a halfway house, sit it in there for a week or two, depending on the temperatures, and make sure that nothing hatches out as far as insects are concerned, because I don't want to infect all the plants that have been living in there for now. So let's go into our halfway house. Oh boy, that's a heavy one. Lots of rain in there. So these will stay here for a little bit. Be sure there's no insects on here, and then they'll move into the house. This time I was smart enough to put plastic down on the table, so I did not incur the wrath of the boss. All right, we got some more things to take a look at. Follow me. Well, here's perfect timing. If something that's tender is going to get a disease, you want it 2 or 3 days before the frost, and that's what's happened to these impatiens. They're succumbing to downy impatient mildew, and that's been a problem for the last probably 3 seasons. Now, the disease has been around since the 1800s, and we really don't know why it's become so bad, but if it's only going to hit at the end of the year, and that's what's happened to me the last couple seasons, then I'm going to continue to plant my impatiens as I normally would. All right, let's finish up. Oh, it's so great to still be out in the garden. We're planting trees, shrubs. You saw the bulbs. Perennials can still go in. But check out my new Everybody Gardens website. That's where I've got my blog posts, stories, videos, lots of other garden tips there. And you can put your stories in there too. And that's where you can become a subscriber to my exclusive Everybody Gardens newsletter. Now, until next week, I've got plenty of alliums to plant and lots of other things too. We'll see you then.